But the reason they were touted, Cocksmith, is that they were all following the greatest number 7 Queensland's ever had.
Sure.
And I say that considering...
Allan
Sorry, who was that again? Say his name again.
Chose Langer.
Yep.
We're both chosen him, mate. And I don't even really think, other than to give him a bit of a rap, you know, probably the best Queensland halfback ever to date. I would say played way above his weight. You know, he still is a little fella, but he was a lot lighter when he played football. You know, some say he was less than 80 kilos. You know, he's about 5'5", 80 kilos, ring and wet, and played. You know, he was good enough to keep. He was good enough to keep Ricky Stewart out of the Australian halfback position for a long time.
When Ricky Stewart was at the top of his game, that was the most interesting thing. Bob Fulton kept picking Allan Langer at 7 for the first Test match of the big games when Stewart was coming off premierships at Canberra. That's how good Allan Langer was.
Allan Langer, and then you know, to top it off, he went over to England to play and got the SOS to come back for the Maroons and play, and did, and did
quick
really
one.
well.
99. I was in Canada that year, so the news coming through that Allan Langer had retired got to me about 17 weeks after it had happened. But what was the reaction when Alfie decided to pull up stumps? Because just the context for people is that Brisbane had won the premiership the year before. Everything's going fantastic. The game's unified. Brisbane unbeatable. Yada yada yada. They lose their first 8 or 9 games of the season, and Alfie pulls the plug halfway through that. What happened?
Well, I think it depends. I think it's a perspective thing. It depends on who you are. As a New South Wales supporter, I couldn't wait to see the back of him. You know, because he was one of those players, a little bit like Wally Lewis here. He was one of those players, he could be having an absolute Barry Crocker of a year, and as soon as he pulled the maroon jersey on, you know, figuratively, he grew 3 feet and put on 40 kilos. He was a stronger, bigger, more determined player. So I couldn't wait to see the back of him. And, you know, I didn't really care what the Broncos fans thought. They were probably upset about it. I would be if I was a Broncos fan, to think that, you know, one of our greatest players ever was departing the scene.
Yep.
So, but I think, you know, there's plenty of highlights on YouTube. Go and check out Allan Langer. Amazing, especially when he first came into grade. Or when he first played for Queensland, actually, is probably the best stuff, because he looked like he dead set looked like a miniature version of a human, playing in the toughest game that there is in rugby league, State of Origin. And I don't remember too many times of him getting absolutely poleaxed. He didn't get poleaxed that much. He was so good in traffic. Those little short kicks that he'd put in had players turning around on their line, and he was the king of the repeat set. Or sometimes he would just run it on the last or the second last and grab himself a try. Very, very cunning player, very sneaky, and you know, often converted opportunities into tries or at least try assists.
And it was where he converted those opportunities into tries. The memory that I have, you mentioned the little kicks that he had, the amount of tries he would score from about 5 to 10 meters out, just to the left or right of the post.
Yeah.
In my head, he just gets the ball and he's only got like 5 minutes run. He was economy. He would just hold. He wouldn't have to run 70 meters to score a try. He'd just, you know, find his little spot, find a little weak forward somewhere. I mentioned Michael Vella the other day in that 2001 Origin game. He knew when a player had clocked off, how he clocked on, and it was a really awesome way to watch the master. And it's probably, there's an argument that he never played his best football for Australia. And it's a bit harsh, because it's more that Australia didn't have huge success on Ashes tours with Allan Langer in the 7. That's where that mentality comes from. Because like I talked about it earlier, you know, he played 24 tests for Australia, which is insane. But he also played, let me have a look. In 1990, he played the first test. Australia lost. In 1994, he played the first test. Australia lost. He played on the bench in the next 2 test matches. But he also was the halfback in the 92 Ashes series, which everyone forgets about, is that we used to have England come over here and play on tours, or Great Britain. They won that series with him at halfback. Now, that was the year that Ricky Stewart actually was quite injured during the 1992 season. But it's funny how that can influence the way you think about his Australian career. He was also the halfback when they won the World Cup final
Yeah.
in 1992.
Yeah. Mm.
But those two Ashes game ones when we lost, everyone was said, "Oh, get rid of him, bring in Stewart." And it's funny.
Mm.
That's how the narrative stayed, or at least in my mind, in terms of the Australian performance. But he still played 24 tests for Australia. It's quite remarkable. And the last part about that is his last Test match for Australia was actually in the year that he retired. He played the Anzac Test, and
Yep.
then he retired about 2 or 3 weeks later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Only to come back, obviously, but that was stunning. Allan Langer, just a phenomenal player, and you would, if you were ever doing like an all-time draft, you wouldn't leave Alfie on the board very long.
No, you wouldn't. And, it pains me, mate. You've got to understand that I really don't like Queensland. I just don't dig them.
It's fine,
But
mate.
it makes me feel better when I think of Alfie in a Australian jersey, even though, like you said, his best moments may not have been in the Aussie jersey, but that's how I like to remember him.
Yeah, outstanding
It
rugby league player.